Don't forget to subscribe to Basement Tales. Just go on Apple, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts and hit that subscribe button. We release a podcast every Thursday. That way you'll be sure not to miss an episode. Welcome to Basement Tales with Sam Jackman, Charlie Einsman, Ed Grass, and Sandra Delancey. We have fun telling crazy but true stories about turning the worst possible property disasters into bags of money. Along the way, we'll pass along some important lessons to help you make cash on real estate. Sam and Charlie walked away from cubicle hell 25 years ago. Starting with no property, they created their own Clear Sky group of companies, sold hundreds of houses, bought dozens of rentals, and made millions in hard money loans. I'm Ed, a big firm litigator until muscular dystrophy made me find a hobby other than suing people. I miss it. Sandra's the normal person here with a real job plus some rentals. Her decades of friendship with the group, from office flunkies to property gurus, might help keep us all humble and focused on learning something. I wouldn't count on it.
Here we are for another Zoom, another Basement Tales. What do you got, Charlie?
I feel zoomy. What are we going to do when the COVID's over? Are we going to Zoom like this? Or are we going to actually have to get a studio and a studio audience?
Oh, wow. We can get laugh tracks. Tell Charlie to put a laugh track in there. That means we need to be funny. That's some funny stuff.
Funnier.
Yeah, spice it up.
I sneezed at the end of that last episode that we were just taping. Hopefully you said he's only listening to one track at a time, right?
I was thinking that.
Okay, good. Then.
Yeah, he's usually able to fix all that stuff.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Well, so then what are we talking about? Do we have something good to talk about?
Do we want to talk about Eva Ray?
Who?
Talk about what?
Talk louder.
Oh,
Tax lien certificate investing?
we can talk about it, but we can't say the F word, right? Would that give it away, Ed?
Nothing has ever stopped you guys from saying the F word.
Are you saying I can't say fuck? I'm not following.
Hey. Yeah. No, nothing has ever stopped.
Can we
you
say
from saying
the name of the street? I don't think there's harm in it.
It'd be better just to say a property in Maryland.
It's a property in Maryland that starts with an F.
Or a DMV. Or a
DMV property.
What
It's
is
relevant that it
DMV?
starts that's in Maryland.
The DMV is not the Department of Motor Vehicles. You know, we get in trouble when we say the DMV.
Well, and technically anything that I filed is public record now. So like that massive thing it's all out there. But, we want to be discreet, even if we can say things. So
it's in Montgomery County, this property.
Yeah.
And
it's a MoCo property.
It's a MoCo property, and it has a very interesting provenance.
Wait a second. Sandra's shaking her head at me because I said MoCo. Come on. I mean,
that's the first time I've ever even heard of that, MoCo.
Oh, really? I don't know. I may have made it up for all I know, but I'm like, come on,
Sandra's
man.
on mute.
I actually like MoCo. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, so
MoCo is the thing. Yes, we've heard MoCo before.
There you go. So we were hip to my lingo on MoCo. So what happened in MoCo, Sam?
I like MoCo.
All right. So can we share the whole provenance of the loan?
That word provenance is too big for me.
All right. Should we do the whole history?
Yeah.
Let's do the whole history because I need to bring up my visitation issues.
Yeah, go do the short version.
Okay, so as a courtesy to help someone sell their home, we provided them with cash so that they could pay their tax bills. And we wouldn't customarily do this, but it was requested by someone who's in the real estate industry, who had licenses and so forth in the real estate industry and had legitimate reason to do this. And so we went ahead and prepared a loan and got it out there, and the payments were made in advance, and so all was good until they didn't sell it, and that was a little problematic. But then they said they would renew it. I think they said they would renew it. They renewed it briefly, and then they didn't sell it again. But then we got a notice in the mail, and the notice said you have like 1 day to redeem tax lien. I'll let Charlie pick it up from there.
Okay, so this loan originated, I don't know, let's say 5 years ago. And so the loan was only supposed to be out there for a year underneath our private lending company. And so the numbers were like $60,000 loan on a property that was worth, I don't know, $750,000 at the time. And we were the first trust. And so we understood that the loan proceeds were to go to pay the delinquent property taxes up to that time and maybe give the owner a few extra bucks, not realizing that it really wasn't the owner, it was somebody related to the owner who actually got the money. So we closed the loan. The loan stayed out there for, huh?
We don't necessarily know that. We don't know.
That's right. We don't actually know that.
We gave, or we actually, not we, you, or Sam gave a loan, and that some of it was used for, or was to be used for a tax payoff, and like you say, other expenses to maintain the house. And the owner did that, and everything appeared to be fine. It was when the tax notice came in that there was trouble, right? Wasn't that when you first?
Right.
Yeah.
So, well, the first problem was the loan was only supposed to be a year.
Right.
But the loan ended up sitting out there for more than 2.5 years. And so 2.5 years from when we originated the loan, that's when we received the tax sale notice. But it really wasn't a tax sale notice. It was actually from a tax lien holder, because after we did the loan, they didn't pay any more property taxes. So a tax lien certificate was generated and somebody purchased a tax lien certificate.
So just to break in, so MoCo or Montgomery County, they didn't get their local real estate taxes. They sent out delinquent notices. And if you wait long enough in some jurisdictions, it varies, they actually have an auction to auction off that tax lien. So the county's happy, they get their money. And then the tax lien holder can sue the property owner to get the tax lien paid, which usually is what happens, but sometimes not, right? So you guys heard about the auction. It had been auctioned off, and as the mortgage holder, you would get notice of that, because the bank, in this case, you as the lender, have an option to, in theory, well, you could cure or do whatever, even though it's up to the homeowner really to decide what to do.
Yeah, and then at that point, though, more importantly, is that we moved into second position on the title chain from a loan superiority standpoint, because the tax lien in this case, the tax lien took over the superior position. So we moved into second trust. And so what we ended up doing is we made an offer to that tax lien certificate owner, and we ended up buying the tax lien certificate. So we ended up owning the tax lien certificate, plus we had at the time, the first mortgage on the property. So we had both.
So now your interest is protected. And of course, it's two different lines of business. One is having lent on it. And then two, well, we got them in reverse order. The first position is the tax lien. And then the homeowner just has to pay that off, pay their taxes or whatever. It's called redeeming the tax lien, and then they can pay off the loan. No harm. I mean, that's usually what happens. No harm, no foul. But then what happened here?
But then we're keep in mind, though, the loan's out there 2.5 years. The loan is technically in default. So we could have sent out the foreclosure notices, and we could have foreclosed on the loan at the MoCo County steps, and we could have got all of our money back and everything. But because we also owned the tax lien certificate, we thought it would be a better avenue approach for us to get ownership via the tax lien certificate and file a quiet action. And that's what we did. So we didn't foreclose. We just used the tax lien certificate to get ownership of the property. And I don't know, that took what, 1.5 2 years?
Right. Technical name of that, which tends to be the same wherever counties have this, is you file a foreclosure action, but it's not like to foreclose a loan. It's the foreclosure of the right of redemption. So the homeowner has a right to redeem by paying all the back taxes and attorney's fees and whatever. And I'm sure that's what you figured would happen at some point with this one. But a certain percentage of these, and this is why people invest in tax liens, a certain percentage of the owners never redeem. And there's all sorts of reasons. They don't have the money. There's sometimes dead owners. There's no heirs. the heirs screw it up, the bank screws up, but it's maybe 1% of them, 2% of them actually get fully foreclosed on. And this happens to be one where it went through that whole foreclosure process. And for whatever reason, the owner got notices and apparently had funds to do it, but just never redeemed the property. And so then once you get that you've now foreclosed, just like a regular foreclosure, you own the property, at least normally.
Right. So then we went on a binge to try and locate where the owner of the property was. And so, we made numerous trips out there over the course of 2 or 3 years to find out where the owner is. And we did know that the owner was elderly because when she originally signed our loan documents about, I don't know, it's been about 4 years, we knew that she was elderly. So we were looking for her everywhere. We were looking at her for old folks' homes. We thought that maybe she had passed, which she did not. And so we went everywhere. So I would show up to the house a couple times. And the last 2 times that I showed up at the house, I knew she wasn't there because I would talk to the neighbors and they said they ain't seen her in a year. But there was a car in the driveway that hadn't been moved. And then there were trash dumpsters that hadn't been moved. So what I did is I went and lipsticked the tires of the car. So I took a lipstick, right? Or a little spray. No, it was nail polish. So I nail polished all 4 wheels of the car. I nail polished the recycled dumpster, the regular dumpster. And I'm not kidding. And I literally, not scotch tape, but I package taped the screen door. Right?
Because that 1978 Impala was not going to be moving. So I don't even know.
And it had a flat tire. I get it. But I actually package taped the screen door because I had to understand if anybody was coming in and out of that door. Well, I went back there a week later. I guess you guys probably can't guess, but the nail polish by the 4 tires was still in place. The nail polish by the dumpsters was still in place because I drew lines exactly where they were. And oh, by the way, the package tape on the screen door was still there. So maybe she'd gone on vacation. Who knows? So then, of course, again, I went and talked to all the neighbors. And again, they told me they haven't seen her in over a year, year and a half. And so those are kinds of some of the things that I had to do to figure out that nobody's in this house. But we still haven't been really told the honest truth if somebody's living there or not. So stay tuned, right?
So why were you looking for the owner? I missed that part.
Well, we were looking for the owner because we wanted her to pay her property taxes back and pay our loan back because we wanted to exit out of this situation, exit stage left and make sure that she was okay. That's why we were looking for the owner.
But at that point, you could have done the foreclosure, right? I mean, you had the real estate lien.
There we go. Now that gets
what you do is you do both. So Charlie's trying to figure out, I mean, to his credit, he's always trying to find people and just work out the deal, pay the interest and pay off the thing, come up with a plan to pay it off. But if you can't find the person, there's not much you can do. So what you do you actually have to file the foreclosure suit to foreclose the right of redemption. Otherwise, your certificate gets voided. So what you do is you file the foreclosure action, try to find the person. Hopefully they pay off the thing and you take a nice interest payment on that and go on your way. But here they sent her notice after notice. She put in a couple filings and did some things in the action, but just never paid off the taxes. And at a certain point, the judge, I mean, there's rules, but they basically get sick of it and they say, well, that's it. Your time's up. We're foreclosing on you. And the judge in this case did that. Ultimately said, sorry, you didn't redeem it. And that's where it would normally end.
That's right.
What's going on right now with that, with COVID? I mean, with tax liens. I mean, we're used to seeing those gigantic newspaper, ads with like hundreds of tax liens. Is that not happening right now?
Well, I think are you talking about tax liens or just foreclosure notices?
Tax liens.
Oh, tax liens.
When the next tax lien sale is. Like,
when
for example, is it delayed? Is
it delayed? What's going on?
DC, Prince George's.
Actually, I'll have to look up DC. Most of them delayed a bit. Prince George's County delayed like 2 or 3 months maybe, but then they went forward in the middle of COVID because this is a big revenue generator, right? For the cities, they have not gotten paid the taxes on these houses. They sell these liens off, they get paid I mean, it's a great deal for them. Then they're like somebody else can worry about collecting it. So there's a lot of pressure on them to do it. DC is going to be coming up on a year in the summertime. I think June, July is when DC usually does it. I suspect they will have the tax sale in June or July, but think about the backlog. Now you've got, instead of 12 months, you've got 24 months. And with COVID, people probably being behind on their tax payments and everything else. So there may be pressure to extend it or come up with some new rule. But some other jurisdictions I know are still suspended. So it's going to be an interesting time in the tax lien world, which is its own world, basically.
Yeah, that's the thing that late night TV shows are made about, is how you can make money in tax liens. Because, I bought a house for $8,000 and I sold it for $800,000.
Right.
Well, that actually happens.
Whoa, time out. That actually happened.
But it doesn't happen often.
Right. It's and there's a lot of risk with them. So if you buy a tax lien in an auction, let's say the property in DC, it can get pretty expensive. You mentioned on, I think, another podcast, when a property is vacant in DC, the tax rate goes up seems like 8,000 times. You're talking like a year's taxes every month, basically, and it adds up fast. So if you have or they think it's vacant, maybe it's not even vacant, or it's blighted, which means basically it's vacant and looks terrible. That's even more taxes. So let's say you buy a tax lien in DC for $20 or $30 or $40,000. And you think, well, I'm in good shape. I'm going to get a good interest return if the person redeems. But maybe you didn't check out that the property is actually falling down and there's mold in it and rats living in it or whatever horrible thing. It might not be worth $40,000 or 50 or sometimes 100,000 or whatever, or it might be raw land that you can't build on. So there's definitely minefields for people, or more likely it burns down after you've got the tax lien. So on the one hand, you do once in a while, you can get that just insane, and usually by buying a lot of tax liens, right? It's like
it's a numbers game. I mean, you narrow it down best you can and try to get a good pool that might have something great in it, but you're almost as likely. I mean, it's nearly impossible. So you're almost as likely just to have a pool of a bunch of problems that you don't make too much money on.
Right. So it's it's enough though. It keeps people interested in it. But you need to learn a bit. And I'm not discouraging people from doing tax liens. You just have to make sure to read usually every jurisdiction has a little rule book. They explain it. The statute's not that long typically. It's, most people can read it, or you can talk to a lawyer who does it. I think the hardest thing of the tax liens is to have what Sam and Charlie have, which is understanding the value of these properties. You can look at a property and say, hey, we're happy to buy a tax lien for $100,000. If we get that property and we have to pay another $50,000 or $100,000 in taxes, and then we have to pay $200,000 to fix it up, but we're sure that property is going to be worth at least $700,000. Well, that's a good tax lien buy, But if it's a piece of junk and you can't rebuild it, or there's some regulatory thing, you may $50,000 or $100,000 may not be very well protected. And so the biggest thing I think is you got to understand the value. Like, you guys don't really mess very much with raw land because it's so hard to know what you can do with it. It could be like basically a free park that you can't build anything on, or maybe if you know what you're doing, you could build like condos on it.
That's right.
Yeah, it's so if anybody out there knows what raw land is worth, construction people, those are people who should look into tax liens in various jurisdictions. I know of a guy in DC who's kind of like that. I think he's a builder, and so he can look at a piece of land and understand what he can do with it, and so he tries to collect the right pieces of land. And man, you get some great deals with that. Even if
we're telling tax lien stories, maybe we should just tell one more basement tale of a tax lien that we bought in Prince George's County. We bought it from a guy who specializes in tax lien acquisitions, and it looked like it was going to be a really very, very good profit. It was sort of near Capitol Heights, and the house was partly fixed up, but no permits have been pulled for any of the work done. So that sort of sets the stage. We got a really good price, partial work done, and then it's vacant. And then so we get it, and we complete our tax lien through the courts, and we go and we start to work on it. And while we're working on it, within a week, Charlie gets a phone call. And the phone call is, hey, there's someone here who claims to own the house. What? How does he own the house? We own the house. It's clean. It's a clean deal. So this guy starts filing motions that he was the former owner. He's been out of the country for years, and he doesn't bother to pay his taxes. And his claim is, hey, I'm back. And this is like years later. We never knew of this person or any kind of thing like that. He just steps into after we've paid for this and processed the whole legal aspect of it. So it delayed it quite a bit just to get him out of the way. And then we got possession of it again. Then we started working on it, and he contacted the local county authorities to cause us trouble. They came over and gave us a stop work order for all of the work that he had done improperly.
And then he rekeyed our house.
And he rekeyed our house. Oh. And all kind. He boarded up all kinds of things. The sequence is a little different, but there were so many delays. And then once we were caught up in the county recognized a lot of work had been done unpermitted by him. Then the county went crazy, and they're like, you have to have complete sets of plans for all this stuff. And then their inspectors would not inspect the work because we couldn't expose all of the work without deconstructing the house. We had to get an outside engineer to come in and approve the work, and then get that approved. And then we're not talking about one visit and as quick as I just described. This is happening over a period of months. We ended up doing quite a lot of work on the house to bring it into code compliance, into contemporary code compliance. We go to sell the house, it sells instantly because it's beautiful. It sells for a very nice high price. The next title company says, hey, we've seen this guy's filings and he looks a little crazy. And even though the books are all straight and you guys have title and everything is right for y'all, we're not going to insure this title unless you cure this one problem associated with the prior owner. And the cure is that we'll step in and fight the prior owner if he makes any more of these bogus claims, because the title company is not going to buy itself a potential liability, even if it's completely legitimate, our position. So that is a title story, and we did make some money on it. We made plenty of money, but it wasn't the kind of money that we thought. Right. So far, we still have the tail of risk, and it wasn't nearly the money that it looked like when we first got into it. Like way, way less money, and it was a lot of learning, but a lot of time spent on that as well.
Yeah, well, this is a good.
That's a tax lien basement tale.
Well, and this is a good time to criticize the entire legal system briefly, but that situation, and you guys have seen others, it is actually very easy to file a lawsuit, including a pro se lawsuit. It's not so easy to win them when you have no facts or evidence or law, or maybe you're not even clear about what country you're in or whatever. But it is just really easy to file a lawsuit.
It is a pro se lawsuit, Ed.
Yeah, well, exactly, a pro se lawsuit. And in DC,
what is a pro se?
What is it?
What's a pro se lawsuit?
Pro se, as my property teacher once said, we use Latin so we can charge more. Pro se is just basically Latin for myself. Oh. And so it just literally means, a regular non-lawyer filing their own lawsuit. But again, if I say pro se, I can charge like $500 an hour for that kind of advice. So if DC is amazing, actually. Like, you go to the court, they have forms all ready for you. Like, I don't have any money, so I can get a free filing fee. I don't have to pay because usually it's like $100, $200 to file a suit, maybe more, depending on the jurisdiction. But you can say, I have no money, I'm going to file this myself. They have a little form you fill out and off you go. Well, then the company on the other side has got to answer that. They got to hire a lawyer. They're not going to, Sam went into court, oh my God, to handle his own case, then, and it can get quite expensive. So this fella, believes he has a case. He doesn't really, but he believes it, and he can just keep filing lawsuits. So say you go in and you have it knocked out, well, he might file another one for a different reason. And then you got to go in, you can get it knocked out, but you usually, it's called the American rule, you usually can't recover your attorney's fees. So for the pro se or individual, it basically is, their time a little bit, but you can cost the business thousands and thousands of dollars.
And they know it. They know the relative value of your money and their time, right? Because they wouldn't be doing these trivial, frivolous things if their time was worth a penny. So they got all the time in the world.
They if they're rational, they try to come and settle it with
just a nuisance payment. Yeah.
Yeah, give me $5,000 or $10,000, and it's hard to say no to a nuisance. But you figure, well, I'm going to pay my lawyer, let's say $5,000 anyway, not the $499 lawyer that Sandra's always looking for, the flat fee.
He'll take you to a death penalty trial for $500
in a civil case. Exactly, you'll get the death penalty in a civil case with that lawyer. Yeah. But yeah,
or you'll get a double hernia surgery.
That's right, just from the pain of it. So yeah, it's a real problem, and so people have to be aware of those costs, and so you have to factor in. And if you do enough deals, it doesn't happen that often, but it can definitely be a pain in the neck, or it can just slow things down. And it seems like tax liens are definitely and understandably, the court doesn't want to take somebody's house away. They just want them to pay the taxes, as do you guys. But then when they just insist on not paying taxes, or what often happens, they're just out of the country or gone or whatever. Well, you got to do something. The house is sitting there blighting the neighborhood, and the jurisdiction is not getting any tax money. So anyway, that's my rant about the legal system for the day. I mean, I think there should be pro se opportunities, but it would be nice if you get somebody who's abusing the system. They're actually, you can ask the court to prevent an individual from filing suits without getting prior court permission, but it's very hard to get done. And there you go. In your situation, you'd never get it. This guy's ticked off about his house, what was his house, and hopefully by now he's just learned it's just he's wasting his own time, frankly. But we'll see. We'll see.
By the way, on tax lien certificate investing, what's the rate of return?
Right. So, and this is actually, it's like Sam said, it's the late night TV headline number, but it's not always quite so good. So in DC, it's 18% is the return. That's the statutory return. So if you buy a $10,000 lien and it takes a year to pay off, you're going to get $1,800 in interest on that $10,000 lien, and the person has to pay that, plus they have to reimburse your attorney's fees. If you, after 6 months, you can file suit. There's rules about how much that can be charged, whatever. But as an investor, you're pretty much getting that full $11,800.
Well, that's if you're paying the face value.
Yeah.
But when you take one more step into tax liens, you find out that they sell for more than the $10,000.
Right.
Correct.
And then Baltimore, Baltimore's 21%?
21% in Baltimore. But what's funny is they have an auction. Literally, it's an auction. So what they'll do in DC, and they have a live auction in DC. Some places it's a secret sealed bid auction. There's a million variations. But DC, they'll have an auction. So they'll say, okay, I've got a $10,000 lien on this property. Any bidders? And if only one person bids, they get it for $10,000 and they get 18% interest. Well, let's say it gets bid up. Sam, Charlie, me, Sandra, we're all fighting for that tax lien, and it gets bid up to $20,000. Well, okay, you got to give DC the $20,000, and after a year, you get back all that money, but you only get interest on $10,000. So your effective interest is basically cut in half. Yeah. Still not bad. I mean, 9% is pretty darn good right now when you're protected. But a lot of them tend to get bid up. And some institutional investors, they will essentially bid the interest rate down to like 4%.
Oh, boy.
Because to them,
for their fund.
That's great.
The fund, so they're institutions, they may have a fund, they're getting a management fee. All they have to do is get this product and stuff it into their portfolio and call a bunch of lawyers, and then they can get their management fee off it. It's not even their money. So you're starting to compete in spaces where it's not even individuals that you're dealing with anymore. And you're starting to see behaviors that may be inconsistent with you as an individual investor at the tax lien auctions.
Right.
And there's a lot of imperfect information.
Right. Although if you're willing to spend the time to, if you have somebody like Sam or Charlie that can value the property, you do the footwork to look at stuff, there can be some gems in the rough. But it's unfortunately, unlike the late night get rich commercials, which I'm still waiting for, you have to make your own luck, as it were, with these things. But when you get one of those without the surplus, as it's called, I describe the 18% or even say 12%. That's the booby price. Essentially, that's the worst you do is get 10, 12, 18%. And if everything else works out, you get the property. So, and you have to pay more other fees, other taxes, whatever, but you can still end up with a property. And it does happen once in a while. So it's fun, but I would say there's landmines pretty much.
The entire field is a landmine field.
The entire field's littered with landmines, but that's what makes it, if you know how to deal with it, it can be an interesting and exciting investment.
I'm thinking during COVID right now, the DC or whatever, any government, they can't expect the property owner to pay back, the tax lien plus, all of their mortgages, everything they've been into forbearance. They haven't paid, their mortgage in months. And now you're going to, think that you can get that, whatever you paid for that tax lien back. I don't know. I think it's going to be different, I guess.
Right. Well, ultimately, if they've sold the tax lien, you have to get paid back, but the court can slow the process down and keep giving them time. And then your risk goes up. If the property deteriorates, you have to pay the taxes that keep getting incurred. And I don't know what's going to happen with the American Recovery Plan, right? So all these different recovery things are generating some money to help people out with some of these costs. But there's a lot of backed up costs. I really don't know what's going to happen.
So what they can do, the government could subsidize the investors, right?
Right.
So they tell the tax holder, oh, don't worry about paying your taxes for a couple of years because we're going to spread it out a little bit. And what they're going to do is they'll offer the investor the 18% yield, and they'll fill the hole with the what did we?
The American Recovery Plan.
The American
right.
The American Recovery Plan, which is an interesting thing when you go so deeply in debt and call that the recovery experience. But that could work out well on the investor side pretty nicely.
Yeah.
Auction.
Okay.
And it could, but what's another thing I don't know, like some of that money, a significant amount, is going to localities that have had tax shortfalls, right?
Yeah.
So DC cannot, and again, not picking on DC, any jurisdiction just can't not get its tax revenue for an extended period of time. So they have a giant hole in their budget. If the American Recovery Plan money backfills that hole, they might be generous about tax liens and not really pursue tax liens as much, or only pursue some of them, or give you more time, or discount it, or maybe they won't do tax liens for another 2 years. I have no idea. And you'd have to really know. I do know some money is coming out of that plan to localities, but it's I've always heard the old Chinese curse is may you live in interesting times. So for investors and homeowners and everybody else, this is a very interesting time financially. And my crystal ball has been shattered. I'm not really sure what's going to happen. And that's not great for business typically. You want to know your risk.
Crystal ball is a little sketchy right now. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, Charlie's not sitting over and making deals saying, I want as much risk as possible. Let's just spin the roulette wheel.
Ooh. Just the opposite.
Well, that's an interesting topic today on tax liens.
That was good.
Touched on a few of those.
Yeah.
And so for you listeners out there, if you guys are interested in any stories or you have any comments or feedbacks, please email us at yourstory@basementtales.com. Again, yourstory@basementtales.com with 2 T's. We would love to hear from you guys, and
we do have
some.
We do have some real good stories that came in, questions, and we'll be addressing those in upcoming takes. So if you like what you hear, subscribe and like us on your different channels and write a review. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all.